like the way I look at it, I prioritize whoever I go to bed with that night. That's how I prioritize my decisions, and it's
Hold on,
working
hold on,
for
hold
me.
on, hold on. He said whoever he go to bed with that night, he prioritized them in the morning. That has nothing. That right there is not a reflection of real to real 360. I just want to
Uh,
put that out there. He said that, and that happens, but I just go forward.
well, the point is to be in your bed with your wife. That's my point. So you
But
cannot have unselfish love. You cannot give unselfish love. You cannot be intertwined with unselfish love if you're not connected to love. What's going on, everybody? My name is Mel, and welcome to Life Coaching by Mel. Here at Life Coaching by Mel, we speak truth. I'm not talking about your truth or my truth. I'm talking about the Lord's truth. I'm talking about the word, the will, and the ways of God here. And if that's the type of content you like, feel free to hit that subscribe button right now. Don't wait. Don't hesitate. Hit that subscribe button right now. Hit the like button for me. Hit me in the comment section. Let me know what you think about this amazing topic. The channel is growing rapidly as we speak, but we need your help to get us to the next landmark. I want to hit 10,000 subscribers here shortly. So do your part. Share this with everyone you know so we can help the channel grow even the more. I recently sat down with an interview with Real to Real 360. It's a nice channel, a couple of guys doing some incredible things for the community, and I was honored to be featured in what they call their spiritual Sundays. It was a great conversation, and I want to let you guys in on that conversation. We talked about trauma and the effects it has on marriage, the effects it has on family, and in what ways can we utilize therapy? Can we utilize coaching to get over some of the most traumatic events in our lives? Sit back and relax and enjoy this interview.
peace to all our followers, likers, and subscribers. Thank y'all for tuning in today. Today is going to be an epic episode, as we know that on Sunday we try to bring some type of resources, some type of clarity to everybody's day to day. So today we have an individual that we're going to talk about or talk with, um, doing and dealing with life trauma. A lot of times we don't be able to talk and sit and discuss men's mental health or relationship mental health or past trauma that we have been through. So today we will be doing a Q&A. We'll be talking, just having a conversation, kicking it with this brother right here. So ladies and gentlemen, get yourselves together, get your pens and paper, and let's welcome in Brother Mel, the life coach. Let's go.
Yes, sir, man. It's an honor to be here, brother. How's it going?
Ladies, man, I tell you, it's an honor and a privilege to be able to have a conversation that maybe be able to spark and heal some individuals for some past trauma that we've been through. So, but at this moment in
Yeah.
time, if you don't mind, could you introduce yourself to the followers, likers, and subscribers at this moment?
Absolutely. What's up, everybody? My name is Mel from Life Coaching by Mel, where I partner with divorcees that are facing rejection and I help them find acceptance from within. But you can find my content everywhere on YouTube, anywhere that you find your podcast, all on social media as well at Life Coaching by Mel. And on my podcast every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, I speak truth. It's truth regarding the family dynamic. Anything that affects the family, whether that be religion, politics, or these things that we're going to talk about today, the trauma that we may suffer from. I speak truth with that. I'm not referring to your truth, my truth. I'm referring to the Lord's truth. And I'm honored to be here. So it's a pleasure. I'm just a regular guy. I'm not no one special.
Well, you had a conversation one day on one of your shows about men having trauma being able to get past some of the things that they dealt with in their childhood and trying to navigate into manhood. We weren't allowed to say when we was in pain or when we were going through things. We was always told to man up, men don't cry, uh, stuff like that, toughen up. So at this point in time, like, what type of effect do that have on a young boy or young child growing up and he's not able to express himself in a format where he can relieve some of that negative energy?
It's a great question. I would say it has a major effect. One thing I do know is that there has to be some form of outlet. I think that is from a positive premise because as a man, you definitely need some form of toughness. You need some type of mode about you that can get up, when you have those scars of life and the moments where rough times come. You have to maybe lead a family, have to lead your flock. You have to have that backbone, bring that strong nature about you that can bring that comfort and security to those around you. However, there has to be that outlet. And I think we all know that by nature. That's why a lot of us gravitate to gangs or gravitate to some type of negative influence, because let's be frank, like, it's easier to gravitate to negativity than it is to positivity. And it's so hard in our culture to honestly to gravitate to the church. It's hard to find positive influences. Let's be honest. But you have to have that. And I think a lot of the cures that we find regarding manhood, or the cures that we find in our culture overall, the things that we chase to find a cure to something, initially has a positive mindset behind it. It's initially positive. However, it can quickly go to negativity if we don't find something to, mitigate beyond what we're saying. So to say flat out, be tough, don't show emotion, don't cry, boy, get up, shake it off, that's not necessarily a bad thing. However, pull that boy to the side and say, look, son, this is why I told you this. This is what you need to do. This is the kind of things that you need to know about yourself, pushing you into manhood. Just straight reprimandment without comfort or without instructions or without knowledge, I think that leads us to where we are now, which is it makes us tough to be able to have any type of dialogue when you have disagreements, or any type of dialogue when you have tough moments. It's hard for men, especially black men, if we be honest, to express ourselves when it comes to tough moments in our lives. And that leads us to being so bottled up that we express it in really abusive ways, if we want to be honest about it.
A lot of times we take this trauma and we take it into our relationship, and we can't really relate to our spouse or our mate or situations because of the things that happened or the things that we saw in our childhood. What are some of the ways that we can work on becoming a better person for ourselves and also our spouses? Because we put up walls, we put up a whole lot of different restrictions because of the hurt and trauma we've been through as a child or as a teenager.
The number one thing I talk about on my channel, Life Coaching by Mel, is ownership. Taking ownership for what is actually going on with you and being honest about it. Whenever we have issues, it's so easy to look outwardly. There's a lot of things that we bring to the table with regarding that relationship, a lot of personal issues and things that our spouse didn't have anything to do with, that we bring into this relationship. How are you actually addressing that? I do think that we're starting to get to a point where therapy is becoming more of a thing in the Black community, and men are starting to tap into that as well. Just speaking personally for my life, therapy definitely helped me. Also, coaching helped me. I think therapy is good when it comes to things that are rooted from the past, childhood trauma, or things that that you just haven't addressed, uproot, like I mentioned. But when it comes to coaching is amazing. When it comes to, I'm ready to move forward. What does things look like going forward for me? And how can I partner with somebody to, help me to paint that picture of what it looks like? One thing that was hard for me, to reach out to others at one point, because let's face it, we're men, we're macho. We think that we got it. And coming from your first question, we were taught to hold everything in, right? So what do I look like going to someone else when I can just deal with it with myself? But there has to be, like I mentioned before, those safe outlets where you get those things out, because it's festering inside of us. I'm not sure anyone has personal religious beliefs or whatever you personally believe, but speaking to the Holy Spirit is a great thing. And I think more than anything, he can guide us in those moments. However, he put professions on this earth for us to utilize as well and get those things out. And I think the reason we're struggling more than anything is we're just too bottled up with our own issues from the past.
Knowing that you work with people that have went through divorces and things like that, what is a main focus when it comes down to people who have been in relationships or abused relationships or battered relationships or even a bad relationship, that you tell them how to move forward? Because as adults, men and women get together and they've been in bad relationships. They put up a wall. They stop people from really getting close to them. How can a person heal themselves prior to them getting into a relationship with someone else from coming from a bad relationship?
I think the first question to ask yourself is what do I want to see going forward? You have to identify what are you looking to pursue. Because in coaching, what I do, it's not my job to tell you what you should do. I don't deal with the should worlds. I deal with finding the result that best fits you. I know what has worked for me. I knew going from this is my second marriage, the heart coach. That's like that name. How's it going?
Yeah,
This
that's
is my
my
second
sister Lynn,
marriage.
healing
Oh, nice, nice.
restoration teaching coach. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. That's so awesome. This been my second marriage. I can speak from my experience. I knew what I wanted going forward. I knew that the mistakes that I made, and I'm just gonna be honest with you, brother, to literally destroy that first marriage. There's things that I did that pushed my ex-wife, to doing certain things that she did. I will admit that. She takes ownership. She has to take ownership for what she did, of course. But I definitely take ownership for what I did. So I knew going forward, I had to do the personal healing within myself. I had to look at myself in the mirror in order to establish what I did wrong then and what I want to do going forward. Once I established that, you have to find someone that meets you. I think a lot of us have the picture of marriage, of a successful relationship. We have a picture based on maybe something we saw on TV or something we see on social media. More than anything, marriage is specific to who you are. You know, we do have certain principles in the Bible and principles that knowingly that can lead to success to a certain degree, but more than anything, marriage is curated by those two individuals. So once you establish what exactly that you want and that you're looking for, you find someone that meets you there. In my previous relationship, although I did a lot of things to destroy that, there was a lot of aspects of it that I felt rejected. Going into my next marriage, one thing I wanted for sure was someone that wasn't just into me for the things that I had, wasn't just into me for what I could bring to them. They was into me for me. You know, I heard Roy Jones Jr. say one time, don't find a woman that you like, find a woman that likes you. She'll treat you better. And that's typically what happens. And you start to find those things, whatever the cause of that divorce, whatever the issues you had in your previous relationships, you find those little instances that you can upgrade and find a different level of thinking that will hopefully lead you to more success in the second marriage.
How much of dysfunction and trauma really comes from learning what relationships are by teenage years, 20s, or even watching your parents' relationship? How much of that affects us as we're going into trying to find a spouse, trying to find a helpmate, trying to find those different qualities in individuals?
It's tremendously involved. Me and my wife are setting to have children as we speak here, and I tell her, look, I want our kids to have great careers. I want our kids to have great houses and all those things. But my primary goal and responsibility is to be sure that my son is a great husband, my daughter is a great wife. That's my primary responsibility. The things you experience in the household sets the tone 100% for the things you look for in a relationship. When you think about how many people in our community, especially, talk about the hesitations that they have in going into relationships, you would think that people have been in thousands upon thousands of relationships, but really what it is, they're not only maybe feeling the brunt of their personal relationships, but they're feeling the brunt of the things they saw their parents go through, whether it be their mother going through the things with their father within the same household, or their mother going through the things, with their father, or men that she may have had, or the father. A lot of us are holding on to things that we saw our parents go through and making that be a truth, what we can possibly experience. And I say a lot of times, people say they have trust issues. I think most of us have fear issues. We are afraid of relationships. I think majority of us have moments of like hesitation, like I said, based on those fears. The Bible talks about when two are married, they become one flesh. That includes every area in our life. And my wife, early on when we first were married, we had discussions about finances. I believe in finances should be all one. She actually came on my channel. We did a video about it, and a lot of people were like, no, a woman should have her own, even for a rainy day or whatever. Every aspect of women saying that, or anyone saying that about the finances or any area that you want to leave secluded, think about what that's based upon. It's based on a fear. Don't get me wrong. That would be nice to have that money there on a rainy day. But I've heard cases of women having up to $40,000, $100,000 on their own without their husband ever knowing about it. I actually literally heard a case of a husband struggling and about to be put out the house, had to take on another job, and the woman had money to the side the whole time That she had about $40,000 by herself, and she allowed this man to get another job, about to get put out. The only thing that made her reveal that money, he said, "Look, we got to downsize. We got to go to an apartment complex." She's like, "No, I got this 40,000." But guess where she got that knowledge from? Who told her to put that money to the side? Because you never know what a man is going to do. Her mother. Her mother told her that. So she went against the nature of what she was, which was a Christian woman who knows that two become one. She went against all that knowledge to lean upon what her mama said. And honestly, she didn't want to do that. She just took the advice of her mother because she thought that must be sound wisdom based on the things her mother has experienced. So it's tremendously based on what we have seen from our parents. Our fears are 100% based on the things that we have experienced, including the things we saw our parents go through.
Now, my sister comes in and she says that we have a joint account and we have our own savings that we had before we met, but we know the amount in all the accounts. So she's saying about her and my brother-in-law, they have a joint account and they have a savings account. When we discuss being married more than one time or whatever the case may be, or being in various different relationships, how much baggage and trauma affects the next relationship?
The baggage is dependent on the work that you do prior to remarrying. If you don't actually take an introspective look and determine the things that you actually did wrong. I had somebody ask me just a week ago, a client I had, say, look, how do I move on without constantly thinking about what they did? It's just ownership. It's really ownership. It's so easy to point the finger. I don't care what happened. I really don't care what happened in that marriage. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's some abusive situations out there. However, there's moments of ownership that we all can take. It's too much on your end in order to look at the other person. And that's what allows you to move on properly. You're able to move on and actually look at other people from a fresh eye. You have a clear eye now. You don't automatically see red flags in something that's actually not there. If anyone's on dating apps or anyone is on that do speed dating or whatever the case may be, where you see multiple people at the same time, it's so easy just to look at characteristics of someone and just X them out based on something it could be a small inkling of something that reminds you of your ex or reminds you of the person that hurt you before, because you are looking at them with an unhealed eye.
We're talking about an untrained eye. We're talking about going into relationships unhealed, right? And trying to look at someone as a significant other, but not giving the clean slate, not addressing the issues within oneself. When it comes to that, and that's when people send their representative about what they think a person wants, what they think a person needs, or whatever the case may be, into a period in time. What is it about accountability and responsibility of working on oneself before embarking into a relationship that is more monumental than anything else?
I mean, we talk about healing, and that's a word that we throw around a lot. I've thrown around, since I've been here so far, but it is a gradual thing, and there's levels to that healing. Me being someone who has faced rejection, I look at it, and I honestly put this in the same frame as someone who's gone through AA or any type of addict. I'm always healing. I'm always healing from that rejection. I'm a recovering rejection person for the rest of my life. At some point, if you're going to go into a relationship, you should have addressed the things that went on in the past, and it's not just about what they are and what they did. I think that the victimhood and the victim narrative is so easy to latch onto. And I think that's the key piece to let go of prior to getting to a relationship. There's going to be aspects of you. And I asked my wife this about, the relationship between me and my mother. I asked her, look, babe, would you say I'm healed from that situation? She said, yeah, you healed, but you're still hurt. So there's going to be moments where things are tough, or you see something that reminds you of your mother, that you have moments where you hurt, but you are healed. That's the same case when it comes to the relationship and a new marriage or looking to date again. There's going to be moments where, you do not have a high level of that healing and you are moved on. However, there will be times where something will hurt you. I think it's important at that time, just going back to the initial question that you asked about being able to express that in a healthy way. Honestly, in the dating period, it's kind of something to explore. Finding moments during that dating period where you can say, look, this is the things that has happened to me in the past, and you starting to remind me of that right now. Is this true for you? Or is this an actuality that I'm feeling or that I'm experiencing? Or is it just a side note or something that you're doing? It's not actually who you are. I think it's important to have those extensive conversations during the dating period where you can, find out the true nature. I know people who have been married multiple times, and the reason that they have is because they did the exact same thing during that dating period. I'm talking about to the T. And it's funny, in the moment of doing it, they didn't realize it. They didn't realize that they were doing it, follow the exact same script until they was knee deep into another divorce. Actually being honest about the path that you're taking to finding this next person is what leads to better results. This is indeed a results-based conversation, results-based organism, as I like to call it, relationships. The results that you receive, the results that you end up at is based on what you're putting in it. And I think this honesty is the key piece of this, and realizing that you are always the common denominator in every relationship that you have.
When it comes down to relationships, and because I see a pattern of single people in their 40s and their 50s back out dating, trying to find someone special, find someone. But prior to, they had been in relationships 10, 15, maybe 20 years. And maybe out of these 20 years, they might have had 7 years of happiness and suffered in dysfunction in the other part until something traumatic has to happen for them to walk away from it. And in this process of being in a marriage for 20 something years or being in a relationship for 20 something years, whether it was him or her, when they embark on a relationship now in their 40s and 50s, it's like a hard wall that is put up. They will embark in all the sexual endeavors, but when it comes down to the commitment part, what is the holdback from the commitment part and not the holdback from the sexual endeavors?
We don't want to feel that pain again, man. we don't want to feel that pain again. How many times you got to touch that stove before you realize your mom was right? And I think that we run away from pain by nature. And the sex part is easy, right? Making out, the going out to eat, all that stuff is easy. Think about it. If you ever broke a bone, you see athletes all the time that break that bone or come back from an ACL. One of my favorite guys on the Cowboys. I'm a Cowboys fan, by the way, but one of my favorite guys on the Cowboys, Michael Gallup.
I'm not gonna hold that against you.
I probably should have whispered that right about now, but anyway, Michael Gallup, man, it's like he still haven't came back. He's a wide receiver, tore his ACL a couple years ago, and it's like he still haven't come back to fully who he is. But they say every time that he struggles with it, it's because he's still thinking about the pain. Right. He's fully healed. The injury is gone, but he's still thinking about that pain. And I think that's what it is. Like, even when we are healed, it's still hard to take that leap again. I think about when my wife and I, we got married in October one year.
You're going to get in trouble. Go for it.
I'm about to get in trouble. And then we took our honeymoon later the next August, actually. I kid you not, guys. I told her when I first met her, I told her, look, I never trust a woman in my life. Every woman I've ever met has caused me to not trust the following woman. And it's including, hope I don't shock anybody. It's including my mother, by the way. So the point is, she accepted that and still, allowed me to love her in my way. However, she started to prove the things that she said. The August honeymoon was the date I finally relinquished my full heart to her and fully trusted her. It was something that unlocked in me immediately. Up until that point, I was completely afraid to allow myself to love the way I've loved before, and I was rejected before. Before that, it was like, look, can I fully trust it? When will the other shoe drop? That's what your thoughts are the entire time. So it's so easy to do everything else, including for myself, up until even walking down she walked down the aisle, but good marriage, saying those vows. I'll do all that and still not fully put myself in position to be hurt fully. Marriage, love, and all of this crap that we are so much in a hot pursuit to do is all a risk. But I think we just got to understand, look, we should be held culpable and held responsible for what we're doing in this part as well. Let's just be honest. We have picked some people that we knew from the jump. It's a high probability that it wasn't going to go well. And I'm going to be honest with you, brother. I've done some research before, and statistics in my mind is not readily here for me, but I've looked into things that says that sometimes people will outright go after people that they know the relationship has a high probability to fail, because they rather face a known failure than to put their hope in something that could potentially work and then fail. It goes back to what I mentioned earlier. We don't have trust issues, we have fear issues. And the Bible says clearly there's no fear in love. So how much love do we really have if we carrying around fear?
You made a statement that I normally when I talk about women and men relationship, and I say a lot of times when women meet men, they know whether or not they worth a damn or not from the
Yeah.
moment in time they meet them. And then 6 months later, after whatever the newness wear off, and then everything starts annoying a person. I feel, me personally, I feel like that if you have been hurt in a relationship prior to, and before moving on, before even embarking in making soul ties sexually, you need to do a restorative healing process with yourself. And I was going to ask you, how can counseling help you in the healing process before moving on, because of the accountability that a person needs to take for themselves?
Counseling helps because you have to get it out with something or someone that's unbiased. It's so easy to talk to our friends, so easy to talk to our family. Some of us even want to talk to a pastor, and depending on how the church is, that pastor can be biased as well. The way that God works, the way that the Holy Spirit works, and the way the Scripture works, if you look into it, He goes inside out. Before He heals any outside relationship, He helps us heal things that are inside. He's speaking to us in everything that we go through. Anytime that we are struggling or going through any type of issues, like, it's the Lord reaching out to us. And I think that's the most important thing, most emphatic thing about it. I'm not super religious, but I do know that the Lord speaks to us through situations. The hardest moments of our lives is the Lord trying to speak to us. So, and I don't just recommend any counselor. I do recommend a spiritual or a Christian counselor if you are a Christian, but more than anything, a spiritual counselor that can utilize God in those moments. You could just have anyone come talking to you by anything, but helping you to see introspective where the Lord is speaking to you specifically in that area. And I think that's what helps us ultimately move on, and helps us to uproot those things that are needed to leave us in order to move on.
Having a safe space to have a conversation, or to have a dialogue with someone, whether it's your brother, sister, imam, preacher, whomever. But having a safe space is something I think is missing in a lot of people, with a lot of people, because there's no trust in the male and female relationship, just like there's no trust in male and male or female and female, whereas they feel like it'll come back to them and bite them. When we discuss everything and we talk about being in a safe space or going to someone for counseling, how can we really get our thoughts together to release that energy? Because a lot of times we take that out on our spouse from relationships in the past, and we abuse them verbally, emotionally, you know what I'm saying, and mentally, because of the things we've been through. And even though that person didn't cause none of it, some things that might have been done might be a trigger.
Yeah.
So in a relationship, how important it is to discuss the damage that has been done and what may or may not be a trigger.
I think first off, it's important to recognize time and place. We are in a developing age in our society where men are being encouraged to open up more than any other time in history. Uh, my grandfather just passed a couple months back, and 80 years old he passed, and he he was the most silent man I ever met in my life, and it just the way that generation was. They were silent and quiet, but when he spoke, everyone got quiet and everyone listened because it has to be something emphatic and important. And I think our generation and Gen Zs especially, are starting to be very open and very revealing and very vulnerable, especially when it comes to relationships. I think there's, like I mentioned earlier, in every movement or every cultural dynamic that grows or that's instituted, I think there's some good in it. However, I think it could be misused and overindulged. When it comes to men specifically, speaking to our wives, time and place is very important. The Bible declares, or not declare, but says the woman is the weaker vessel. And I'm not diminishing women whatsoever, but there is a level of things that they can take on, you know. And I think that's why men are asked to be the providers, primary providers, the protector, the priest of the home, and to do everything it takes to make sure your family is going in the right direction, because we were built to handle things. The introduction of men being more open is amazing, but I think that understanding the appropriate moment for that and the appropriate posture for that. My wife, I'm just going to speak for myself, and I'm not perfect at this at all. My wife will tell you I'm the perfect example of somebody who at times gets it wrong. But the moments that I see her respond to me the best, it's when I set time either away from the house, or whether that be going on a date, taking out to dinner or going for a walk, some way or another, where she's not embedded with the busy to-dos of the house or the busy to-dos of her day, where she can just fully just be free, be set free as far as the atmosphere is concerned, and she can hear me clearly. And I'm direct when it comes to, I'm not just throwing this out there fly by night. I'm saying, babe, I really need you to listen to this really quickly. This means a lot to me here. So I'm being intentional with what I'm saying. Those are the moments I see the conversations work. When I don't see the conversation work is when I'm just, she in the midst of doing her makeup, or I'm in the midst of doing something busy. I say, hey, it really hurt me the other day when you said this. What you talking about? I ain't saying, it just it just goes off from there. It's important to use discernment in those type of moments. One thing that's important about for men, and one thing I know about us, is like, once we feel shut down by anything, it's hard for us to go back and try it again. But I would encourage men to more so learn from that and try it again if you have a woman that is emotionally intelligent. And that goes back to what we talked about earlier, selecting the right person. Those are the type of things you understand and establish during the dating period. Is this person capable of handling these type of conversations? Of course, I don't want to reveal those type of vulnerable things early on, but let me give her a piece of something. Can she handle that without flying off the handle? Or how does she respond? Is there care in what she does? I heard Miles Monroe, Dr. Miles Monroe, the great man of God, that says to care for someone is to anticipate their need and then meet it. Anticipate their need, then meet it.
Mm-hmm.
What I vastly remember, me starting my podcast and doing certain things with content early on, me and my wife dating, and I'm thinking about proposing one day, but we ain't there yet. But all of a sudden I get a package in my mail, brand new camera, brand new iPhone, things of that nature. She don't know what I'm thinking about doing as far as proposing. What she anticipated my need, which showed that she cared. And honestly, it was just based on conversations of me telling her what I'm looking to do with my business going forward, and she just, meeting that need. So that allows me to see, okay, this is someone I can trust to be vulnerable to, because she actually cares for me. I think that's the things that we should look out for.
I was always taught that to love someone is to be vulnerable to that person and trusting that person with information or with your hard emotions, and trusting the fact that they can hurt you, but knowing that they won't. Now, going forward, we look at the way relationships are today. And in these relationships that we have today, we put everybody before our spouse, whether it be the family we made prior to, whether it be the job, whether it be material. So, what is it about a relationship today that doesn't hold the weight that it used to hold.
Oh man, that's really good, brother. Now you're taking me deep because if I'm going to make it specific to the black community, if you don't mind,
Right.
I think we lost the value, in the '60s during the Great Society moments, where Lyndon B. Johnson gave us the welfare system and uh, Section 8 housing and things of that nature, and has completely been devalued. By that I mean marriage.
Mhm.
If you look at everything prior to the '60s, you notice what got our people through every hardship. It
Mhm.
was God and it was family,
Mhm.
specifically marriage. And I think since then, before then, we led the nation in wedlock births. Since then, we lead the nation in out of wedlock births. And I think that it has 100% created a sense of individuality, within our people. If we want to be more specific, within our women, I think men, if I'm being honest, I think men for the most part still would love to unite with our women. They would love to, but I think they're taking the lead. I mean, allowing our women to take the lead in the fact of not wanting to unite with us, not wanting to unite with a black man. Unite meaning the way God intended it, where man is, is God, Jesus, man, woman, children. And I think that we've gotten to a point where, because whether they be Title IX or affirmative action or whatever the case may be, that allowed women to achieve more than a lot of some of our men. Although statistics will tell you that, on average, black men make more, but we have women that have maybe more degrees, or whatever the case may be. They say black women are most educated, although that's statistically not true as well. But I'm just going to stick to your question. It has allowed us to see a lot of division within our community that allows our women to, devalue us at times. But it's not in totality. I'm not blaming them. I'm saying it's on us.
Mhm.
We allowed LBJ to do whatever he did. We allowed the welfare system to take over us. We allowed ourselves to be put in position during the 90s crime bill to be put in prison. We allowed our homes to be taken from us. And I think I'm not using this to make us victims even the more. I'm saying, look, it's time for us to bounce back. It's time for us to be the change that we want to see. And again, I'm not bragging on myself, but that's exactly why I have married a black woman. That's exactly why I'm trying to birth black kids and trying to be everything I want to see in our community, to show people this still works. Doing things God's way, marrying one woman, having children within the wedlock, building together still works. We're being fed by so many outlets that, doing it this way and having children out of wedlock and co-parenting is a great thing. Like we're taking the focus off of the nuclear family by so many groups out there, and it's attacking us more than anything, and more than any other group. If we get back to that, we would honestly see a better society within the black community.
You touched on co-parenting. How will a child grow up balanced with nurturing masculinity, security, uh, all these different things if about co-parenting? Because at some point in time, there's a parent missing, so there's a piece of the child that's missing as well. Um, how can a child honestly grow up without dysfunction if he's missing or she's missing a part, whether it be 5, 6 days a week?
The statistics will tell you that it's a very low probability. You look at the prison system, you look at welfare, you look at the crime rate. It highly favors those raised in single parent housing. A lot of it stems from a term that I'm developing and learning a lot about here recently. It's called parental alienation. And what that is basically a parent that alienates another child. I mean, the child from the other parent, one way or another. The things that lead to that and signs of that parental alienation, got about 10 of them here. You have anger, lack of self esteem, self confidence, lack of impulse control, separation anxiety, fears and phobias, depression, suicidal thoughts, sleep disorders, eating disorders, problems in schools, drug and alcohol abuse. when you see children going through those things, more than likely they're facing some form of parental alienation. They're just lashing out, kind of like what we discussed earlier that men do at times, and ladies, I mean girls do as well. People who go through divorce, it's kind of hard, especially when you have children, to keep that positive and amicable. And I think at times, if a child see the other parent being treated so bad during that moment, not just during that moment, but going forward, a part of them is saying, look, that's still half of me. You talking so bad about them, that's still part of who I am. So if you saying that's so bad, oh, that person's so bad, what does that say about me? I mean, my mom used to call my dad ugly all the time and then come back around and tell me I look just like my daddy. So what does that make me think? I'm ugly.
Right, right, right.
So of course it's a definitely atmosphere. It creates an atmosphere of dysfunction, and I think a lot of us, we function. The only way we know how to function is in dysfunction. Based on the environments that we grew up in, and it takes a lot of personal work in order to get beyond that.
We talk about the subtle names that are being called, when the mother has an issue with the father and takes it out verbally on the child. That child end up growing up holding those hurtful moments in.
Yeah.
And as an adult start lashing out, whether it be at the parent that was there or the spouse that is there,
Yeah.
but never at the missing parent.
Hmm.
That's something that I've noticed a lot, that if you have raised a child by yourself and the parent that is missing, when they finally do decide to come back, they get the rose parade.
Hmm.
The parent that's been there get their tail to kiss.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a conversation that is needed to have to prevent all the above. Not to say for them to disrespect the parent that's just coming back. Not saying any of that. I'm saying to be fair in your judgment. And only way for a child to be fair if you to raise them in a nurturing environment. And a lot of us
Yeah.
don't know what a nurturing environment actually is because we come from dysfunction.
Absolutely.
How much is that single parenthood? Because I come from a single parenthood, broken home, father left home,
Yeah.
what I'm saying, abusive situation. And we always say we want to give a child something that we never had. So in all reality, what the child never had is a functioning household.
Hmm.
But we try to give them materials to pacify them,
Yeah.
thinking that that's going to stop them from acting out. That's going to stop them from being, reckless at school, disrespectful at school. That's going to make them more attentive. When a child have a balance of a man and woman in the household, and while me saying a man, not a male, a man in a
Yeah.
household, that child is more functioning, if I'm correct or not.
Absolutely. 100%. Everything shows that. I mean, you have to have that balance, and God created family for that reason. It's funny to me how we want to do a God function without implementing it the way God created it to function. Like this is clearly one of the first institutions that God made was family. And he directly elected the man to be the leader, the woman to be the nurturer for a reason, and it works greater than any other facet that you want to do it in. But going to what you're saying about the co-parenting, and honestly, I very much understand what you mean about the parent receiving the parade and things of that nature when when the other parent been there the entire time. I think it's important for the children, especially when once you become an adult, to get both parents' side of the story. It's so easy to create your own story, but it's also so easy to believe one side. It's so easy to just come up to a conclusion that is actually not true. And I think it's just so important to get both sides of the story because for me, my parents, I grew up in a two-parent household, but my dad worked tirelessly. Honestly, he had about 3 to 4 jobs at all times. So I hardly ever saw him except, special holidays or late at night. And my mom, she, bless her, but she was just a hard person to live with. But
Mhm.
she always made us know, made us aware of moments that my dad was just not treating her well. They finally got a divorce after 30 years, after a very tumultuous relationship. But I had this image of my dad the entire relationship, that he was just this guy who, always put my mom in bad situations. Although I knew my mom was, just a hard person to live with for us, and I know she was for him, I still put all the blame on him. I didn't talk to my dad for a year after they divorced, and he kept trying, kept wanting to, gave me my space, but he kept wanting to gain that relationship. So one day I just finally accepted one of his calls, and he said, I want to come see you. He came and saw me. When I tell you, my dad let me vent every frustration I've ever had about him, and allowed me to fully get everything out.
Mhm.
And then he told me his full story. For the first time, I fully heard my dad out without someone else trying to manipulate me, alienate me from what the truth actually was. That was so freeing for me, because now I have a choice to make, and now I can truly decide, not choosing after the two of them, but the choice I have now is to decide to believe his story as full truth, and believe her story as full truth, and understand that has, first off, nothing to do with me, but also that's both of their perspective, and it's okay. It's okay that both of them have a different view of how the relationship went wrong, and I can leave it at that. Our experience are our experiences. As children, when your parents go through things or they have a hard relationship, you still receive the brunt of that, and have effects of that. But their relationship is their relationship, and I think it's time for us, going back to kind of what we talked about earlier. We got to stop carrying the baggage of what happened between our parents. We got to stop. More often than not, even in single parent situations, it's not that the parent didn't want the child. The parent didn't want to be with that your mama, or to be with your dad. That's just really what it is.
Mhm.
And there are circumstances, of course, that the parent don't want the child. Don't get me wrong, but more often than not, it's the parent just wasn't ready to have a child. It's so long ago, has nothing to do with us, and I think we're latching on at times to what happened and carrying it over to our relationships, and that's almost not almost that's definitely a generational thing, because honestly, the patterns that I have seen in my family goes up 3 generations. The patterns that I've seen, from divorce to multiple relationships to kids that are with, like, all those things, generational. Where does it stop? It's time
and
for us to
and
look in the mirror and say, look, it stops with me.
and that's something that I wanted to address. When do it stop? When do we take accountability and say it's time to heal for us? That it's time to be able to accept love, for one, and also give love. Everybody talks this unconditional love with conditions. How can that work when you want unconditional love giving to you, but you give it back in conditions?
It's an oxymoron.
Right. It's an
it's
oxymoron.
a it's an oxymoron for sure. I don't mean to be religious, because I'm not, but I'm definitely connected to God.
Mhm.
But ultimately, man, it's a God thing. I think a lot of us are disconnected to anything that matters. We're disconnected to God. You cannot have unselfish love. You cannot give unselfish love. You cannot be intertwined with unselfish love if you're not connected to love. You know, God is love. So if you're disconnected from Him, every relationship that you have will easily be selfish. It would easily be about what you can receive, you know, and you never tap into agape love if you're not connected to God. And agape love is the core of what marriage is about. It's the core of what family is about. Agape love. Agape love, for anyone that's not sure, is being able to, love endlessly, regardless of circumstance. Regardless of what happens, you still hold on to love. It's a function of who you are. It's not about what's happening. It's just who you are. It's what you do with this person or people. We're looking for so many answers,
Mhm.
and I promise you, the thing that changed in my life was fully accepting the love that God was trying to provide me. And that's what fully taught me to love my wife, you know, and that's what was missing in my first marriage. Trying to do things outside of God's principles and outside of the way he envisioned it caused me my first divorce, or caused me the divorce in my first marriage. Doing things his way. And anytime I get off that track, I notice, oh, she a little bit mad today, you know, or she ain't feeling me today. And I think that's what this thing is designed for. This is his creation. Marriage is his design, and doing it outside of what he envisions leads to bad results.
When we talk about, I guess, touching the basis of being equally yoked, um, when we're dealing with relationships, and like I said, you know what I'm saying, wanting unconditional love, wanting somebody to love us, right? Everybody who is walking wanting somebody to love us, right? And like I said,
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying, and only giving back conditional love, or prioritizing other things more than you prioritize your relationship. What kind of process can we go through to really check ourselves for our accountability to prioritize our mate? Because all of us have children. And in the fact that we have children, they get grown and they have their own family. And putting that family before your spouse, or putting your materials before your spouse, or putting anything before your household or your spouse, is detrimental. When people deal with things that are or can be detrimental to their marriage, like we always talk about when we're in relationships, date nights. Whatever happened about family meetings? Let's discuss what went on this week. Things of that nature to measure out moving forward. Could
yeah.
that be a healing part of a relationship before it get to being a divorce? Because you find out that safe place, you find out um, what is actually going wrong in the marriage, and being man or woman enough to accept it and work on it. And see, that's another part. We acknowledge the fact that we messed up, but the working on improving it is the other part.
Man, you spot on right there, brother. And I think you said a process, but it's really just one instant. It's a shift in focus and a shift in mindset to do, like I mentioned before, do this thing exactly how God envisioned. There's no other earthly relationship that's more important than your marriage. There's
Mhm.
no one that goes in a high priority. I don't care who it is. And that's, you know, sometimes it's harder to do once you get to a new relationship, a new marriage, and maybe that person has, you know, you both have other kids, you have that blended family. Sometimes the lines get blurred with that, but that's definitely difficult. But it can be, you know, can be overcome. You can overcome that, and you can establish the way God's design is for that marriage. But you talked about being equally yoked, and I think that's where it starts. The term equally yoked is about two oxen that are lashed on together by what's called a yoke. It's
Yo,
basically, yeah, a metal frame, and essentially one cannot go forward without the other. They have to be walking together, and I think that's the picture of what marriage has to be. And I think that starts from that selection process as well. But if you're already married, like it sounds like what your question is referring to here, you have to prioritize your spouse. Your
mhm.
spouse has to be number one. If not, everything else will falter. If not, like the way I look at it, I prioritize whoever I sleep in, whoever I go to bed with that night. That's how I prioritize my decisions, and it's
Hold on,
working
hold on,
for
hold
me.
on,
You
hold
know,
on. He said whoever he go to bed with that night, he prioritized them in the morning. That has nothing. That right there is not a reflection of real to real 360. I just want to
yeah.
put that out there. He said that, and that happens. But just go forward.
Well, the point is to be in your bed with your wife. That's my point. You know, so one of the things I did, I would say, to establish how things would go in our marriage at our reception, I stood up in front of everyone and said, "Look, this is our marriage." You know, some people say you married a family too. I don't believe that. You know, this is our marriage. You know, we're a priority. She's my priority. So anything you say to us is a suggestion. You know, I was in front of her family, I was in front of my family, just establishing that order. And I promise you, brother, we ain't received one call from anyone, you know, trying to buck against us or tell us what we should do and all this stuff. I mean, we just, everyone knows, and I'm not sure if that's what it was, but I think it is, because my dad even mentioned, look, we know not to get in y'all business. But the point is, man, prioritizing your spouse gets you further than anything else, because especially if it's your children. I don't have children yet, but we definitely are establishing what we would like our household to be, you know, once our children are here. But the children leave, you know, spouses stay, children leave. So whoever's staying in my house, whoever's staying in my bed, that's who I, you know, prioritize.
I'm not even going to touch that. Now, I'm not going to touch that. I'm going to touch that. But I want to say we went over a little bit, Mel, but I enjoyed the conversation, and I would love for you to come back so we can have more dialogue when it comes down to this subject. I want to thank you for coming on.
My honor, man.
I want to give you an opportunity to tell people how they can reach you, how they can watch your podcast of Life Coaching by Mel, and also to your services and where you're located.
Yes, sir. Guys, amazing being here. I want to thank my brother for having me on, man. It's been an honor to be on here. Great conversation. You can find me on any platform, whether it be YouTube or anywhere you find your podcast at Life Coaching by Mel. I go live, well, not necessarily live, but I put a new episode out every week, every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. Any social media platform, Life Coaching by Mel, you can find me there. If you're interested in one-on-one coaching, whether you are a divorcee or anyone is facing some type of rejection or facing some type of family issue that you're looking to move forward with and find out what that looks like for you moving forward, feel free to hit me up in my email or DM anywhere you may find me. But my email is melcoaching@yahoo.com. I look forward to talking with you.
Let's go.